Welcome to Cinemophile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemaphilepod.com. Wendy believes she's perfectly happy in her relationship until her older boyfriend, Jack, who is divorced with children, insists they should take a break, make sure that she's truly okay giving up on the idea of marriage and babies. Hence the premise for a wonderful film, The Sun Never Sets. I'm joined today by the director, writer, and editor of that film, and that would be Joe Swanberg. Joe, welcome back to Cinemophile.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Among your many talents is writing a story that is relatable, humanizing, and an opportunity to kind of plumb the depths of what a relationship is, what it can be, what it should be. That seems to be something that's been very consistent for me as someone on the outside looking in, something that's very important to you. So let's talk a little bit about the origin story for The Sun Never Sets.
It's a personal film. I got divorced in 2019, and in my own post-divorce relationships as a person with children who did not want to get married again and did not want to have more kids, I found it to be a theme in my dating life and something that I think is an interesting struggle. When I was in a relationship with anybody who said they didn't want to get married or didn't want to have kids, I was always cautioning them because I had heard that a lot and then seen several friends change their minds, and I thought that the changing of the minds was a kind of gnarly experience that I wanted to investigate. And the film was sort of born out of an idea that I had about a woman whose life was actually completed by dating two different men, a sort of stable divorced dad and then more, adventurous and sexy, let's say, younger person, and how, maybe she was perfectly happy splitting her time between these two relationships, but the guys could not tolerate each other or the presence of each other. And I kind of played around with that a little bit over the years and couldn't quite find the right channel. And then as I was going through my own breakup, I sort of thought maybe I can bring some of myself into this and make it a little more painful and chaotic, perhaps. So that was the kernel. But then the way that I work, I cast the film and then I ask my actors to bring a lot, and we kind of all throw our own personal relationship stories into the stew, and the film becomes something else as we collaborate. So Jake Johnson, who I've worked with a lot, I kind of pitched him playing me or a loose, version of me in the film. And then when Dakota joined, I just thought she was so smart, so funny, had so many of her own great ideas, and I just felt very much like we were off to the races at that point. And then as we looked for the other person in this love triangle, Cory's name came up, and I had seen him in Saturday Night playing Chevy Chase and thought he was great in that, but I was not sure, with the heavy amount of improvisation that I do and things like that, whether he would be the right fit. But I'm friends with Jason Reitman, and so I texted Jason and told him, I'm meeting with Cory. What do you think? Did you like him? Are you a fan? Jason texted me back the most effusive text and essentially said, if you can get him, get him. He's amazing. And I then had a really awesome initial 2-hour meeting with Cory and just loved him, thought he was perfect. And so, everything after that was a real pleasure. And working with the three of them as the sort of central dynamic of the film, I just went to work happy every day and watched them be great and, weighed in a little bit, tried to give it, my perspective still and be a voice in that room. But it really is such a pleasure when you have the right cast, because a lot of my work was done for me.
I don't know in which order to ask these next two questions because they both seem very important, central to the success of the film, which is obviously you found three terrific actors, and the ease, the kind of familiarity that these characters have with one another, the honest dialogue that they have with one another, which ties me to the two different questions. And I don't know if they're different, but your writing has always been like a fly on the wall kind of writing in terms of people talking to one another, sharing
Mhm.
their innermost thoughts, regretting sharing their innermost thoughts, and also the level of comfort that it almost feels like you're eavesdropping. If there's, and
Mhm.
I know this is going to sound way lofty and sort of cinema-phile-ish, but there's something about even I think of Bergman. I think being in a room in a Bergman film, it's like we're eavesdropping on their conversations, and it feels, not the same, maybe not, but you know what I'm trying to get to here. And
Yeah.
that ability as a director, obviously, is something that really is a hallmark of so many of your films. So where does that come in? How does that play out? Do you run lines with him? How do you get to that level of comfort when you're working with people?
I think it starts in, the initial casting meetings. I would say a lot of it probably has to do with the fact that I'm willing to share pretty much everything about my own life or my own experiences. So by the time we get to set, we've talked a lot.
Yeah.
We've really kind of intellectualized the characters, the story ourselves. There's
Mhm.
just been tons of dialogue between me and either individual actors, or if we have a chance to get together in a group, the group dynamic. And
Yeah.
so, I'm always hoping that on set we're just having fun. We've gotten a lot of the questions out of the way, and it's a kind of playful experience. And then, yeah, I try and, be unfussy with the technicalities. I'm trying to create dynamics where the characters really can, or where the actors really can just be relaxed and do the scenes and not have to, hit a very specific lighting cue on a very specific moment of a line and then turn and hit a second lighting cue as the camera whirls around. I'm a little old school and simple in, my coverage and the way that I kind of approach these things. And I guess I'm geared from the beginning towards naturalism, in the locations that I choose, the clothes the actors are wearing, everything is very inspired by real life, by reality, as opposed to fantasy or something like that. So, and also, I came out of film school wanting to make documentaries. I think I thought I would do that, and then was surprised to be kind of drawn back towards narrative filmmaking. And but my writing and my approach to filmmaking has always been a little doc inspired.
Yeah. I see it.
And in a dream scenario, I think I'm still imagining that I create a fictional situation, but I approach it like it were a documentary, or capturing, a spontaneous conversation and trying not to do tons of takes, but to keep things fresh and spontaneous. And those are all kind of multiple reasons why I think they feel so observational.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I'll throw in one other reference besides Cassavetes, his early work. There's just something that just feels like you are in the room. You're not watching
Mhm.
this. You're a participant in this film.
Mhm.
The other thing that I love about the story, the dynamic, by the way, we're talking about The Sun Never Sets. We're speaking with Joe Swanberg. The film is coming out on
28th in Chicago and September 4th nationwide.
what I love about the story is the catalyst, the dynamic character. They're all dynamic in their own way. But thank God, Dakota Fanning, she lives in two worlds. She does it beautifully. And
Yeah.
the fact that she's uncertain, the uncertainty, I mean, she's so appealing. And it's not often you see a woman in the middle, in the center, the dynamic character who makes a lot of the things happen around her. And she does it in such an unfettered sort of way.
Well, I have a ton of love and respect for that character. I sympathize with her situation. I think she's placed into an extremely uncomfortable situation by her first romantic partner, then thinks that this other relationship might solve that. Of course, discovers all relationships have their issues. The baggage from her prior relationship with her ex resurfaces more quickly than she imagined. And then, I do think she loves both of these men and is truly torn. And as a filmmaker, it was very fun to play with a dynamic where both of them needed to remain enticing, but sort of red flaggy, troubling throughout the film. And I wanted the audience's allegiance to shift back and forth,
Yes. Yes.
In the beginning, it's like, okay, good, dump that guy and go with this guy. And then, 20 minutes later, ideally, you're going, actually, dump that guy and get back with the first guy. Oh, actually, uh, no, dump the first guy and get with that, And Dakota just
Yeah.
needed, move through those waves in a believable way. And, she's kind of our central force. And I don't know, I just feel lucky that, my gut instinct was that she totally got it and that I could trust her. She did an interview the other day. She was like, "Oh, I knew that I could trust Joe and he wouldn't throw me under the bus." And, but I felt the same way. It's like, oh, I knew I could trust her to balance these things and, to take us along on that ride. And she's just so fun to work with, so good at the job, like every day just really admired her. I just watched her work, on set and off set. I mean, just watched her be an actor in the film industry, but also watched her become Wendy. And I don't know, it's fun to aspire to earn your actor's confidence or something. And Jake and I are coming into the film with so much background, a lot of love, a lot of respect, a lot of trust. And Cory and Dakota came in, I think, both like, okay, how is this going to go? And what exactly are we doing here? I just respected both of them so much. And each day that I got to watch them work, I just really was blown away, and then came into work the next day wanting to make a better movie and, earn the level of talent that they were bringing to it. And so I've made a lot of movies now, and there's just sometimes they're just magically seeming to flow in a way where I feel like my job is just to stay out of the way and, let them be fun and great and, enjoyable. And I just never, yeah, Dakota just from day one, I was just like, oh my gosh, the question now is like, can this go from great to even a little better than great? She just was never not on it, and effortlessly. I mean, I never saw her struggle really to understand it. So I think whatever instinct in me heard her share her own stories and, got to know her energy, I just think she understood the project, got that character, and, just elevated all these scenes. And then also really got Jake and Cory in such a great and magical way. Her chemistry with both of them is, awesome to watch and so dynamic and fun. And then, even I'm sitting there on set going, "Oh my gosh, I don't know which one I think she likes more or has a better dynamic with." They seem both great individually as couples. And so, yeah, I just give her a ton of credit. I really was relying on her every day, and she just carried the whole thing so beautifully.
Fantastic job. Always more Jake Johnson. I can always have more Jake Johnson. And it was a revelation
Yeah.
to see Cory Michael Smith. I had not seen the Saturday Night Live film. The film is The Sun Never Sets, and we have been honored to have with us today director, writer, editor Joe Swanberg. Joe, thank you. Anytime you're doing car lot commercials, come on. I want to talk to you about them.
Thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you so very
Great
much,
talking.
Joe. You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.